Okay, I'm nervous. It's been a long time since I've recorded an unplanned podcast episode. That is such a mouthful to say, but I don't know how to shorten it every time. This is the first one that I've recorded in this new place. It's not always going to look like this. If you're listening, you have no idea what I'm talking about, but if you're watching the YouTube video, I'm experimenting with the background and it will change, but let's just start the video by saying things don't have to look perfect before you start. You can just start with what you have and grow over time. I don't need to wait until I have the perfect background set up. Like, I didn't really tidy any of it. I just strategically blocked a little bit of the mess. But if you are wanting to do something, stop waiting until it's perfect, because you will learn so much more and be able to achieve so much more and progress so much further if you just start today. Alright, so today I'm going to be talking about my Patreon and my experience on Patreon. And it's a very specific topic to talk about, so I know this won't be relevant to most people unless they're actually interested in starting a Patreon, if that's something that's on your mind. You might just be curious how I run it as well, but I think mostly this is just going to be a very niche topic for those that are interested in getting their Patreon set up. So I've got my notes written down here. I mentioned in a recent journal video that I've been writing my notes instead of typing them on Notion, just because the process is more fun for me. So it might be a little bit scattered, but I have long since given up trying to make these episodes structured and short and, quick bits of information, because I'm just not that type of person. I've realized I'm very rambly and long-winded. I would like to try to keep this kind of short, like under an hour. That's short for me, but we shall see. So this might be a little bit all over the place, but we're just having a chat. We're just having a chat about Patreon. I'm just sharing my experience. So I launched my Patreon on January 1st, 2020. It is now 2024, so it's been 4 years. I launched about a year after being on YouTube. I think I checked the dates and I think that's what lined up. So pretty early, but I feel like at the time it felt right for me. So I don't really have advice on when you should start your Patreon. I'll go into a little bit more about like the community and what kind of questions you should ask yourself, but a lot has changed over the years. I just have to say, like, when I launched, it looks completely different almost to what it looks like now, and I think that's pretty natural. So I don't know where I wrote this down, but I remember thinking that my biggest fear for Patreon was not that no one would join, and I'll talk about that more later, but it was more that I was worried that I wouldn't be able to maintain it enough. I wouldn't have enough content to keep producing, because I have a sticker club tier where I design a sticker club. No, that makes no sense. Where I draw a sticker sheet every month. I'm getting distracted because someone is leaf blowing outside. Just the absolute perfect time for them to start leaf blowing. Not like it's their fault, but we're going to push through because, hey, it doesn't need to be perfect. Let's start with my insecurities around starting a Patreon, just because I feel like it. So, I am not a traditional artist in the sense that, like, I consider myself an artist, because artist is a pretty broad term. Like, I'm a creative in terms of photography and I enjoy creating things. This is a terrible definition, but I'm not an artist in the sense that I don't illustrate or draw in my spare time. Like, it doesn't come naturally to me. I had to learn how to draw as an adult about 5 years ago, and I'm still very insecure about my drawing. Not really insecure, that's probably not the right word, but I know that my skills are still very lacking in that area. So I didn't start a Patreon in the traditional sense of like, hey, I'm a really great illustrator or artist and you should join me so you can learn from me, like learn from my drawing skills. It wasn't like that at all, and that was the accounts that I was most familiar with. And so there was a little bit of like uncertainty around there, like what exactly I could offer. I know I wanted to offer more behind the scenes and connect more with the community, because as much as I love YouTube, I just wanted a more like intimate, safe space. Intimate? Did I say that weird? So yeah, I didn't really have a strong plan going into Patreon, but I think that was a good thing. Like I didn't overthink it, and I took about a month to prepare for it and to figure out my tiers, and then I just dove right in. And I think that's what I need to do, because I've realized that if I let myself overthink projects too much or let myself spend too long on a project, I will never launch it, because I'm a recovering perfectionist and I need to dive right in. And I had a feeling that when I launched, there might be no one that joins. There might be 0 people that joins for the first 6 months to a year. So I didn't want to wait until it was perfect and then launch and like have this big pressure like building up on this launch and then feel disappointed when I got no patrons. So in a way, it was me trying to manage my expectations of being like, you know what, it's not a big deal, just launch. You're probably not going to have anyone join anyway. It's just an arbitrary launch thing. And I knew I wanted to launch on January 1st. Okay, so this is all over the place. So I guess let's start with, in case you want to skip the rest of it, let's just start with like my experience on Patreon. So it's been amazing. It has been amazing, and I think, no bias whatsoever, I think I have the best community on Patreon, because everyone is just so kind and generous, and sometimes they're not kind, but they're really sassy and protective, and like we're just a family now on Discord. And so yes, I have a Discord server. That didn't come about straight away, but I didn't expect that Patreon would help me develop my skills as a creative so much. So I guess I had an inkling that doing the monthly sticker club designs would help me develop as an artist, because I know for myself, I don't like to draw in my spare time as a hobby. I told you I'm not that kind of artist. I feel very bad admitting that, like very embarrassed, but it's true. And I feel like if it wasn't for the Patreon sticker club, then I wouldn't be drawing as much as I do, and I definitely wouldn't grow as much as an artist as I have. That sentence made no sense. My point is, needing to draw a new sticker sheet every month has really helped me as an artist. It's really helped me to hone my skills and figure out my style, and that's the biggest thing. I needed that incentive as well to draw, because it's not something I would do in my spare time. I'm going to take a break from recording because there's a lot of leaf blowing going on, and I don't know if you can hear the audio, but we're just going to take a break, let this person do their thing, and I'll come back when it's silent. I think we're in the clear now. And if not, I'm still going to power through, because I refuse to stop again. So I was saying that Patreon has really helped me to improve and practice my drawing skills, because it does not come naturally to me, and I'm very new to this world. I'm still learning quite a lot, but drawing every single month definitely has helped. I didn't expect it to help my speaking skills as much. When I first started my Patreon, I was doing monthly podcast episodes, so once a month. And when I listen back to the first one, it's so embarrassing, but I leave them up there, like my first YouTube videos as well, because I think it's important for people to see my progress. I didn't start my YouTube channel talking like this, and some people can. Some people are very natural and comfortable with speaking, but for me, while now I am very comfortable, I had a lot of confidence issues in the beginning. I was just very insecure, and so Patreon became a safe space for me to practice my speaking, my communication, and my speaking skills is probably my main strength on Patreon now. So I do fortnightly episodes now, so I do it every 2 weeks, and I also do weekly updates for my workshop tier, which is every single week. So I'm speaking quite often for my Patreon tier, and it's really helped me to find my voice, like quite literally. And that in turn helped me to speak more comfortably on YouTube as well. And it's just that cliche of the more you do it, the better you get. So in that sense, like Patreon has really, really helped me with that, because I've just been consistently talking so much every single week. I also did workshops at the beginning of my Patreon when I launched, where I would just talk about a specific business topic for 1 to 2 hours around there, and that really helped me be able to do these podcast episodes actually. So even though a lot of things have changed, the content I deliver on Patreon is different now. The skills that I was able to pick up and learn from those things have still carried on and are still very, very useful. Another reason why I love Patreon is not just because it helps me improve my skills and grow as a creative, but also the friendships. I have just met some amazing people, some lifelong friendships through Patreon, and it has been so healing, so funny. Like like I said before, like my community on Patreon is like so amazing, and I'm so grateful to have such a tight-knit group. I somehow have attracted a group of people. I say somehow because I feel like I don't really openly share that much on my YouTube channel. Like I'm a lot more open and vulnerable on my Patreon because it's my safe space. But it's interesting how on YouTube I don't really open up that much, but I've still managed to attract a group of people that are so similar and share such similar values. And so that's been one of the most rewarding things. Above everything, it's being able to meet new people and also just become friends with them, because I'm very hands-on with my Patreon. I'm jumping all over the place again, but I am very, very hands-on in my Patreon. So I have a Discord channel and I'm there pretty much all the time, like almost daily. We're having conversations on there. But because there are a majority of us that are introverts, there are days when we just don't speak. We can go for days without speaking and there's no judgment there. Everyone knows each other, everyone is encouraging, and like I think that's the key thing. Like I really wanted my Discord to be this really wholesome community of everyone lifting each other up, because I really despise the competition that comes about in any industry. It's not just the creative industry, like almost any industry, it can get so competitive, and I just want to foster a community where we can all grow the pie. We can all have a share of the pie. We're not stealing something from other people. And so that's been one of the main things that I have worked on, like cultivating in the Discord community, making sure that we are always supporting each other's endeavors, like cheering each other on, supporting each other. We even have a channel for like weekly wins, which is really nice. But then also with the workshop tier, I should start with how many tiers I have. Okay, so I apologize. I have 4 tiers. I technically have 4 tiers, but 3 of them are the main tiers. So I have a coffee catch-up tier. I can't believe I didn't start with this. I have the coffee catch-up tier, which starts at $2. When I launched my Patreon, they didn't offer AUD, and so now I'm with USD, and I could switch, but not to go too much into it. It's actually better for me to stick with USD if most of my patrons are based in America, which they are, so there's a little bit less fees involved that way. But there's a coffee catch-up tier at $2, and what you get is now a monthly printable calendar. You used to get a printable design, but that became so much work that I moved to a Herbie calendar. So you get that printable calendar, and you also get 2 episodes pretty much a month. It's every 2 weeks, so it works out to be 2, sometimes 3 episodes a month. And I think that is it. I also have like Patreon features. I've slacked off a little bit in the past few months, but the 2 main things are the podcast episodes and the printable calendar. That starts at $2. And then the next tier is the sticker club tier. So this is my most popular tier. So this is $5, I believe. I don't quite know. And so you get everything in the previous tier, but you also get the files for the sticker club. Why am I struggling to explain this? You also get a sticker design every month. You get the digital files for it. So it's all digital. You don't get anything delivered to you. There's too much complications around the logistics of shipping, especially from Australia. We can't ship things as letters. We're restricted with that. I don't quite know the rules around Patreon because I don't know if it's technically a sale, but it is kind of a commercial sale. So anyway, just to keep things simple, it's all digital. A lot of people have their own cutting machines, or if not, they cut it by hand. That also works. They just print it out on sticker paper. So that is the sticker club tier. So you get that, everything in the coffee catch-up tier, but you also get 15% off. So I don't do discounts in my shop for several reasons, but you can get a discount if you are a patron. And sometimes the discount pays for your patron membership. So in that sense, it can be worth it if you time it with shop updates. I'm giving you the hacks to get some discounts off my shop, as well as, become a member and get some other goodies. But that is the sticker club tier. I really should have it up because I'm just trying to recall it from memory. And then the next tier, which was a hidden tier, and I'm considering hiding it again. I don't know how I feel about it. I want it there for ex-workshop patrons. Okay, let me explain. So it's called the insiders tier, and you get access to the weekly updates, which is a weekly video about 30 minutes, usually around 40 minutes every single Monday. They're give or take, usually Mondays. And you also get early access to YouTube videos. So you get 24-hour early access to YouTube videos, and they're also ad-free. And you also get 20% off my shop. So Sticker Club, you get 15%. Insiders, you get 20%. So then the very last tier is the workshop tier. And this tier was designed for me to be able to give way more attention and time to people that want to start up their own business. So we have a separate workshop channel in Discord. And this is where I really encourage everyone to ask each other questions, because you not only have access to me and I will try to answer your questions as much as possible, but sometimes I don't have all the answers and sometimes other people have more of an experience with it. And so the workshop tier was meant to kind of build this community around other business owners, because from experience, the business journey can get very lonely, and also you don't know if you're doing the right thing. We will share the supplies that we use, we will share what software we use, we will share pricing strategies, we will share all of that stuff. And we've had quite a few businesses launch and blossom during this whole workshop journey, so that's been really exciting for me, and I take credit for those, because hey, it happened while you were a workshop patron, so I would like to think inadvertently, indirectly somehow, I have contributed to their business journey. But also the workshops that I've put out hopefully are helpful, like why branding is important in your business, the things that you need on your website, how to market yourself better. Those topics are the kind of workshops that I used to make, so I don't make them anymore, but the full back catalog is there. But the workshop tier is the most loaded tier, and I will try to recall it from memory just because I like to make things harder for myself. But you get everything in the previous tiers, all of the tiers. You also get the full back catalog to all the workshops. Like I said, I've relaunched the book club this year, so there's going to be quarterly book clubs for a year. And you can read along with me, and what I do is I make a book club summary video at the end of it. I am contemplating releasing these eventually. I'll keep them exclusive for maybe the year, and I will, release it after a few months. We'll see. I'm not sure about that. But for now, they're somewhat exclusive. I do monthly business check-in calls with whoever wants to show up. It's quite a small group because sometimes with the time zones and just your busy schedule, and sometimes people are just too shy, but we have monthly check-in business calls every month. And we follow this structure and we talk about how our month went, how we rated it, what was something we struggled with, what was a win, and how do we want to proceed with the next month, what is our goal for next month. And the feedback that I've been getting from that is it's just me and 2 other people usually. So again, a very, very small group. I would say if you're a workshop patron or you're thinking of becoming one, that's probably where you'll get the most value, because you get an hour with me. You get an hour in a group call, you get to connect with other people, you can hear how they run their business, and I think it really puts you in the mindset of staying consistent with your business growth. So I think the business check-in calls are probably the most underutilized reward of the tier, because I think it is intimidating, but I think it is the most useful thing. If you are serious about growing your business, then taking advantage of that 1 hour group call session is really, really important. I've already lost track of the rewards, but there was the business check-in call. I also send out a form every quarter to do a quarterly review. So I ask you some questions of how your quarter went, what are some things you struggled with, similar to the business check-in, but it's every quarter. The whole point is so that you take a step back and look at your business and reflect on the things that you've achieved, because sometimes we can forget and we just keep going and we can burn out. But also to stop and set goals for the next quarter, to review your yearly goals and to make sure that you're on the right path. Are you doing the things that you said you wanted to do? And if not, why? So those quarterly forms that I sent out, I think are really important. They don't take too long, but I think they're really important for checking in with yourself and your business goals. Because when I used to set goals, we're not going to go into that, but when I used to set goals, this was the thing that changed it for me. Being able to check in consistently to making sure I was still on track, because it's so easy to get sidetracked doing other things, pursuing other goals without realizing oh, I haven't done anything that I said I wanted to do at the beginning of the year. And so it just helps you to reevaluate your priorities, just taking some time to do that. I also do, which is fairly new, but I also do market recap videos. So after every craft art market that I go to, I will share a little recap of how much I made the profit, I minus all the expenses, like travel, the store fee, market insurance and all that. I'll share the top selling products, and I'll also talk about my lessons and like takeaways from the market, like things that went well, things that didn't go well, what I want to improve for next time. And these are really short. They're usually around 10 to 20 minutes, but I think it's a good way of recapping everything, because I think you learn so much with each market. And so I like being able to break down the financial, but also set goals for myself for like the next market. Like, what did I not do well this time, and what do I want to do better? That's kind of the theme of the whole workshop. We're reflecting, we're reviewing, and then we're like setting plans to move forward with intention. We're not just like barreling through. Is that the phrase? No. So those are my tiers. I think I covered everything. I'm probably missing something. I don't really have plans to add new tiers. I started with 3 tiers, and then now we're at 4, because I realized not everyone wants all of the business stuff, but they still want the weekly updates. And so that's where the insiders tier came about. So I created a division. So you could still get the weekly videos from me and early access to my YouTube videos without all of the extra business stuff. So that's optional. I think that's all I wanted to say about the tiers. I want to say also, it probably sounds obvious, but you need to know, there's no formula for Patreon. I think it's very, very unique to your own individual skills and what you enjoy doing. So I enjoy talking a lot. I enjoy making videos. I enjoy helping people with their business. That was probably like the main goal for me. I really wanted to be able to provide that like intimate support for someone launching their business, because I've been through it. And so I just want to share my knowledge and like my mistakes so that people can skip those mistakes. And just being able to connect with other business owners, I think is just so helpful. I feel like I'm learning all the time as well from my workshop patrons. So I want to say also, when I say that there is no right formula, I know that there's a lot of content that I produce. I think it's a lot of content. It pretty much is a full-time job for me, even though it's not full-time job money, if that makes sense. And I'll go into that as well, but I've got to say, just because I create a lot of content for my Patreon does not mean that that's what you need to do. It is completely up to you how much you want to do. I am a patron of other creators. Sometimes people post once a month. Sometimes they post twice a month, 3 times a month. The main thing to remember is, which was a very important lesson for me, it shouldn't be a full-time job for your patrons to consume your content. And that is the lesson I had to learn, because it's my full-time job. So I'm constantly creating content for it. But people have busy lives. People have things going on that they do not have time to just sit there and open my Patreon content every single day. Like, I was posting almost every single day probably, and I thought the more content the better, but that's not necessarily true. And so I've had to dial it back a lot because it wasn't sustainable. Yes, I was posting a lot to Patreon, but I wasn't posting as much to YouTube or Instagram, and that's not me being a good business owner. I still have my shop that I need to run. So I would say if you're considering starting a Patreon, you should start with the least possible content possible. I just said possible twice. You should start with the least possible content, because you have no idea how you will feel about it, if you will find it sustainable. So I think a common complaint or a struggle with Patreon is that people launch and they get really excited that like, I'm going to do this every month, I'm going to do this every week, again from experience. And then you realize how much work it is. There is so much preparation, and then you've got to upload everything. There's so much admin work involved. I think the mistake is offering too much at the beginning, and then you trap yourself in this content cycle. And I think a lot of people burn out. I've got to say also that I don't think Patreon is for everybody. So I would have a serious think about whether you can see yourself doing this long term. If it's something you just want to try out as well, that's totally valid. But I think the key is to treat Patreon like a job, because it is a job. It is quite a lot of work. You have deadlines that you set for yourself, and you have to stick to your deadlines. You have to keep yourself accountable, and you have to know how to be creative, but also take care of yourself. So I think the difference with Patreon versus like other shop things is that there is a deadline. People are paying you to deliver content on time. I would say have a good, honest talk with yourself. Is that something you can manage? Are you able to deliver content consistently every month? And how much time will it realistically take you to deliver this reward? Not ideally, how long will it probably actually take you to do this reward. For example, the happy mail might sound like a good idea and it sounds fun, but like just think about everything you have to print, collecting everyone's details, prepping all the envelopes, packing everything, shipping it, bringing it to the post office, all of those things. So you really have to like look at the full scope of the rewards that you want to do and try to work that into your schedule. Is it possible? Okay, I'm going to go into what I think my tips are if you're thinking of launching your Patreon. So my biggest tip is to create your Patreon based on your strengths and your skills and what you want to develop. So again, I love to talk. I talk a lot. I ramble a lot. So weekly updates and podcast episodes are natural for me. It's very natural. It's very fun for me. I look forward to it every time and it never really feels like work. The editing part is a little bit harder, but the actual talking part, it's no issue at all and it's fun. But this doesn't mean that you have to do it if the thought of talking on a podcast episode for 30 minutes or 15 minutes, however long you want, is hard. Because if you're going to dread the task, you're not going to want to do it. And like not all work is going to be fun and easy, but you don't want to hate it. And so I would start with a list of maybe things that you are really good at, things that come naturally to you and things that you enjoy doing or talking about. And try to develop some tiers around that. What is something that you could spend hours doing? Develop a tier around that. Like if you draw a lot, you could have behind the scenes videos or just a time lapse or even just extra photos and words about your work in progress. So even just seeing behind the scenes stuff, like that is a wonderful reward on its own, just seeing more behind the scenes stuff that you wouldn't really share with anyone else on Instagram or on YouTube. So you could share progress things, you could share behind the scenes things, you could do polls. I feel like polls don't work as well for me because I end up just wanting to do what I want to do. They do help sometime, but I end up overriding the polls anyway, so I don't do polls as often. But then I have the Discord and I will just put the question out there and get an immediate response. So in that sense, it's pretty good. So yes, my first tip would be to figure out the tiers that best cater to your unique skills and personality. You do not have to be talking on your Patreon. You could just be doing words only if that's your strength. The next tip, the next thing to consider is sustainability of content. So again, I already touched on it, but it's how much time can you realistically dedicate to spending on your Patreon and Patreon content. You have to consider more than just the month. This is something that you have to do every single month. So how much time can you realistically spend on your Patreon and still deliver value? And that brings me to the next question. What value are you providing? What is the point of your Patreon? And it's a big loaded question, and even I wouldn't really know how to answer it. But I think I would say just some cute stickers, but very minimal. I would say I have minimal cute stickers, and now it's just become about Herbie stickers. I think people just want Herbie stickers. But I think, even though the sticker club tier is my most popular, I don't know if this is a self-sabotage thought, but I don't think people are following me or a patron of mine because I'm a great artist or I'm a great drawer, I'm a great illustrator or anything. I don't think what I'm offering them design wise is like super unique. So my value is not in that. It's in the Herbie and the story maybe, but I think my main value is my talking. Like I said, I think sharing my ideas and making people feel less alone in their business journey. But something that has really come out of my Patreon is the healing self-care part of it. So I share a lot about my healing process and my mindset shifts and things that I'm thinking about, things that I've learned about myself. And so I think that has actually become probably my biggest value in my Patreon, my podcast episodes. It's not like I have an interesting life at all because I'm like home most of the day. I'm not particularly funny. I'm not really doing any interesting things. I just think a lot. So I'm a big overthinker. And so one, I think a lot of people like hearing themselves in my podcast episodes. I feel like they think it's very relatable. Two, they can learn some things. So I'm a big learner as well. I love reading a lot of books and I love constantly learning more things about psychology and why we do the things that we do. And I love being able to impart that knowledge and that wisdom onto other people because I think a lot of it is tied to the business side as well. So it helps my workshop patrons like getting over your insecurities and your ego and the things that are holding you back, imposter syndrome, can help you grow your business. I think it's all very connected. And so there is a big emphasis on self-care and healing and not being a jerk on my Patreon. So I give a lot of tough love as well. I like to call out some bad behaviors because I don't want to enable people. But I also just share about me. So it's not just, this is a big point that I think people need to know when they're doing their Patreon. It's not just about what you can offer people. It's about you as a person as well. And I said person, weird. And I know that sounds very egotistical and really uncomfortable to think about, but we are all unique and we can offer different things. And so some people are just invested in what I'm doing and what I'm thinking and what I'm reading and what I'm enjoying. And that's okay. They just want to keep up with you. And so it's important to understand also that it's not just what you can do for other people and what you can give, although that's very important, but it's about you as a person. What part of you as a person are you offering? Are you allowing for people to get to know you better if that's what you want? You don't have to have that kind of relationship with your patrons, but it's something worth considering. So I think I'm very all in with my patrons. And in turn, they share a lot of their lives with me. So we're very invested in each other's lives. But I would say that my Patreon allows for people to get to know a different layer of me that they don't always see on YouTube. So I would never really swear on YouTube, but I have a very big potty mouth, actually. I swear quite a lot, and people on my Patreon will know that because I swear a lot in my D-Diary episodes. And that was a message I got a lot in the beginning of my Patreon, oh my god, I didn't know that you swore so much, because you never swear in your YouTube videos. But there's a reason for that, because I just don't think it's necessary for me personally to swear in YouTube videos. And I'm not talking about anything that really requires swearing, but when I'm talking my D-Diary episodes, I get very worked up and very passionate. And so yes, the F word comes out a lot, which is not for everyone, but that's just who I am. I do swear quite a lot. Anyway, another tip is, well, it's more of a question. Are you prepared to have 0 patrons for 6 months? Are you prepared to launch and have absolutely 0 people join for 6 months? That doesn't mean that will be the case. I was very lucky that I had a few patrons actually join on the first day, but I was prepared to have nobody join for months, and I did not put that pressure on the launch. And you could apply this to, that needs to be a podcast episode. You could apply this to shop updates, you could apply this to business launches, anything. You need to be able to manage your own disappointment and expectations, because if you are expecting to launch your Patreon and get 20, 30, 50, 100 new patrons on the day that you launch, I think you're launching for the wrong reason and you might be a little bit disappointed. And also it really, really, really depends on your existing community. But also you could have a lot of Instagram followers, YouTube subscribers, but if they don't know you personally and don't have an affinity with you as a person, they might not feel inclined to join your Patreon. They might not have a reason to, why would I want to get more content? I'm happy with the free content, and that's totally fine. There's a demographic for everyone, so I don't think we should be trying to convert every single person that consumes our content to watch my Patreon. And this is why I do these free unplanned podcast episodes, because I still want to help as many people as I can with their business journey, but I only have limited time. And so the workshop tier is where I can devote most of my attention to the people that really want it and need it in the moment. And then I can share some other business wisdom elsewhere in my own time. So back to the question, are you prepared to have 0 patrons? Are you prepared to have 3 patrons for 6 months to a year to 2 years? And if the thought of that makes you really uncomfortable, then you may need to evaluate what you want from your Patreon, because it sounds like maybe you just want either the status of it or you want the money. And let me tell you, the money now is very helpful for me, but again, it's not a full-time job. It is a full-time job, but it's not full-time job income. And I've been on Patreon for 4 years. I think I'm doing amazing, but I know other people would look at my income, which I don't hide, by the way, it is public. A lot of people would look at it and be like, there's no way I could survive on that much money doing that amount of work. So it definitely comes down to personal preference and what your risk aversion is, and how much you're willing to offer your community. What kind of community are you trying to attract? And I think you really got to spin it from the perspective of your audience, from a prospective patron. Why would you want to join this person's Patreon? If you were looking at your own Patreon, what would make you want to join? What makes this any different? And again, these are loaded questions, but I think it is important to consider. And I would say the biggest mistake, again, people start with too much content. That was me. And also they launch the Patreon, are impatient, can't keep up with it. They're creating so much content for the 1-2 people that have joined because they put too much content in the beginning. And also they didn't really have a community to begin with. So you have to be realistic about how people are going to find you. So when you launch, where are you going to promote this? Who are you expecting to want to join? Because if you don't have many Instagram subscribers or YouTube subscribers, then who are you expecting to join? Because like there's only going to be a very, very small percentage that join. So for example, I have now around 8,000 Instagram followers and I have 6,000 YouTube subscribers and I have 50 patrons. So that is a very, very small number compared to those numbers, because not everyone that follows me cares about me, the person, cares about what I have to say, or just is not interested in the business side of it. So just because, let's say you have 2,000 followers, it doesn't mean that's 2,000 potential people to join your Patreon. I would say a good estimate is 1%. So of those 2,000 people that follow you, you might have a good chance of getting maximum like 20 people. Again, this is so different for everyone, but I really want to help you manage your expectations, because I don't want it to seem like, oh my God, it's so easy. You just launch and you get all these people that love you to join. There's a lot of groundwork you have to put in. Again, I was on YouTube for a year and I felt like I had very luckily built up a lot of traction with my YouTube that I was able to launch my Patreon and get a lot of people from there. I've got to say also that most of my patrons found me through YouTube. They did not find me through Instagram, and I think my theory is because of the nature of my Patreon, where it's like mostly me based rather than artist based, because YouTube is where they really got to know me, because I either talked or shared parts of my life and they found that relatable or inspiring. And so Instagram's a lot harder to communicate that information. There's so many other people that it's just easy to skim past people. So for me, YouTube has been the greatest like funnel to Patreon. A lot of people have found my Patreon through YouTube. And again, it's because of what I'm sharing on there that allows people to get to know me a little bit better. And just a fun fact, my most popular tier, I think I already mentioned, is the Sticker Club tier. The tier with the highest turnovers is the Coffee Catch-Up tier, the cheapest tier. I thought that was very interesting. And my most stable and loyal tier, the people that don't actually leave all that often, or if they do leave, they always come back, is the workshop tier, the most expensive tier. So I find that very, very interesting, and it's not always what you'd expect. But I would say also that, you know, life happens. My Patreon is not a priority in people's lives. It's not really changing their lives. I mean, maybe a little bit with their business, but it's natural for people to leave. I constantly lose patrons every single month, and that is okay. I love to wish them well, thank them for the time that they were there, because people's lives change and you need to not feel so deflated when people leave as well. So I don't take it personally and I don't like to look at it. I just assume that I'm going to, like, my numbers will fluctuate by like 5 every single month, and that's okay. I'll gain some and I'll lose some. That's natural. And again, like I said, people return. A lot of people return. And to me, that's the most exciting part, because you've left. You've had time without it. You've saved your money, but part of you still wanted to come back and consume the content. To me, that's like the greatest honor. Not to offend the people that have always stayed, but I'm just saying, like, it's not a bad thing for people to leave, because sometimes they will come back. It's not always to do with you. It's sometimes just to their life circumstances. And I don't like to check the exit surveys. So I used to at the beginning because I thought it'd be useful to help cater my content. But now that I'm in a comfortable place with my content, I don't want to know why people are leaving. Sometimes they will tell me, which is very nice. But I think that's the end of it. This was so all over the place. I'm really sorry. But let's just end with what I think works for me and how I think, am I allowed to say, developed a successful Patreon community. I think I have quite a successful Patreon community in terms of like loyal patrons. I'm not saying in terms of like, oh my God, I'm making $10,000 a month. Like, that's a different form of success. And of course that would be amazing someday. But for me, if I have people that are staying on month after month, I have patrons that have been with me for years. My very first ever patron, I'm giving her a shout out because she deserves it, Bambi from Dear Bambino Art, an amazing artist. She was literally my first patron, and she still is my patron. If I'm allowed to say, I'm going to her wedding in a few months. So it's been an incredible journey. And to me, that is the biggest compliment, that the people that have gotten to know me the most, the best through my weekly updates and my podcast episodes are the ones that have stuck around. And I've always had this fear that like once people get to know me, they will hate me and leave. They'll realize that I'm just such a terrible person and will leave. So that's why Patreon has been very healing for me. It's given me so much confidence. I've been able to make such amazing friends. For me, I would say the biggest thing that has influenced the success of my Patreon is that I'm very, very, very involved with my Discord. I'm very serious about making friends with all my patrons. I almost demand them to tell me about their lives and like what they're up to. And especially if you're a workshop tier patron, I will give you so much tough love in order to help you grow your business, and I will give you tips because it's something that really, really matters to me. It's something I'm genuinely like, I love talking to my patrons. Yeah, the Discord is the highlight of my Patreon because it's not just like my relationship with my patrons, they have relationships amongst themselves, and I just love seeing people become like really good friends with other patrons, and I'm like, I did that. I'm the reason that you're friends. So that's a very selfish reason for me, but I love it. I love being the matchmaker, the reason why, you know, people's lives are better in any sort of way. The whole point of this Patreon is to just feed my ego, clearly, but it does bring me a lot of joy. It is a lot of work, but it is right for me because it's in line with what I want to do. It's taking me in the direction of my goals, and I feel very fulfilled and content every time I share content on my Patreon. But this isn't about me. This is about you. And I know you might be tempted to just look at the very successful creators on Patreon that have thousands and thousands of patrons and are making thousands and thousands of dollars a month. But I also want to point out, which is the whole point of these unplanned podcast episodes, by the way, that there is a different way to live. It's not wrong or right or better in any sort of way. It's just different. You can have a successful business making much less. You don't have to be shipping out hundreds of orders every week in order to be called a successful business. And so those are the kind of interviews, I'm going off track, but that's the kind of interviews I want to have on this podcast episode. And I want to showcase that on my Patreon. I've been on there for 4 years. I've persisted. While it might not seem like a lot of patrons to people, 50, I think I'm at 59 right now, which fluctuates a lot. To me, that is very successful. I have 59 people who are willing to hand over money every single month to get more of me. That's insane to me. Like, I'm so grateful for that. And even if it was only 10 or 20, I would still be continuing it because it brings me so much joy. And I do love that Patreon is scalable in the sense that if more people join, it's not going to really take more of your time. It's not proportionate that way because you're still creating and publishing the content regardless of how many people listen to it, for example. But yes, that is my 4 years on Patreon. I just wanted to share that. It's very different to the past podcast episodes I've done, but I thought it still might be useful anyway if you were interested in starting your Patreon or just thinking about it. So I just decided to release it as an unplanned podcast episode because I just want it to be like a little chatty episode. If you have any questions, feel free to leave some comments below and I will answer in as much detail as I can through text. So that brings us to the end of the video. Very long video, but this video would not be complete without a thank you to my patrons. Every single one of my patrons are the reason I am able to do what I do every single day. I hope this video was helpful or interesting at least, but if you have any ideas for future topics you'd want me to talk about, let me know in the comments below because that would be extremely helpful so I know what future episodes could be about. But thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!